Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the new Supergirl reboot for the DC universe right now going on at Warner Brothers. Last year in 2025, we had a reboot of Superman. It was a completely fresh reboot. It had no connection to the DCEU, for those who know who I'm talking about, where we started with Man of Steel in 2013 and we worked our way over to Justice League. And it kind of went on for a while. They made films after Justice League. It really wasn't working out. So James Gunn, who worked on the Guardians of the Galaxy films, went over to Warner Brothers, basically became the head of the DC studio brand. And he basically promised everybody, we're going to completely reboot the DC universe and film. I'm going to start with a Superman reboot, and then from there, we're going to continue off of other stories that happen in this new universe. We're going to start with that Superman movie. And briefly in that Superman movie, we also got a taste of Supergirl. And obviously now we're in 2026, and that's the latest DC film is Supergirl. So we got a brief taste of the character there, but now in this film we do get to see a full feature-length story of the character, and that's kind of where this review is coming from today. We're talking about this new Supergirl film that happens immediately after Superman, 1 year later, here in 2026. So in this film, you guys, we do follow the character of Supergirl. Her real name is Kara on the planet Krypton, just like how Superman is Kal-El for his Kryptonian name. And it's her 23rd birthday. She wants to get drunk. She has a very pessimistic way of viewing the world. She feels that Krypton really didn't treat her the way she wanted. She kind of left her parents abruptly. They sent her to Earth similar to how Kal-El was sent there, but they kind of sent her there for weird reasons. The planet was kind of dying at this point. They wanted Supergirl to basically live the life of her own, and sent her to Earth. And now it's she's 23 and is basically getting drunk for her birthday. Doesn't want to make contact with anybody. Whenever Superman's trying to do a video call with her, she shuts the call off right away or finds reasons for why she has to end the call super soon. And so the film kind of picks up where this young girl tracks Supergirl down and is asking her to take care of this bounty hunter kind of character that essentially killed off most of her family. And she knows that Kara slash Supergirl is a superpower being similar to Superman, and she feels she's kind of the right person for the job to track this person down, this creature down, I should say. It's not even clear if the character's human or not. And so the two of them go on this journey, and Supergirl has a very pessimistic way of viewing the world. And so while they're on this journey, they encounter characters like Lobo. They encounter characters that are also falling victim to this bounty hunter character that killed off the family. I think his name is Krem or something like that. And basically, while tracking down Krem, there's other obstacles they have to work around. Supergirl goes to a planet where it's very kryptonite heavy. It's very kryptonite heavy in the oxygen, so she can't breathe very well when she gets to that planet. There's things that happen to this young girl that follows her. She gets kidnapped. She kind of has to work with Lobo at one point to kind of work around this obstacle. And so all this stuff happens over the course of Supergirl. And another reason why Supergirl wants to track down this Krem character is because he basically shot a poisonous dart into Krypto, the superdog, for those who remember him from last year's 2025 Superman reboot. And so basically they have to find a cure for Krypto, but the only way they can do it is to track down Krem, who has one of the few antidotes left to basically reverse the effect of the poisonous dart that they put into Krypto. And so that's kind of why Supergirl agrees ultimately to go on this journey with this girl to track down the Krem character. And this all happens over the course of Supergirl. So overall, guys, I thought this film was okay. I went into Supergirl knowing that not a lot of people were very happy with it. It had very mixed reviews. I think it's currently sitting at a 54, if I remember correctly, at Rotten Tomatoes at 54%. So half the people like it, half the people really don't. So it's kind of right in the middle. And I can definitely see why after seeing the film. It's a very okay film. There's nothing really spectacular about it. It certainly does not have the charm of the 2025 Superman film. And for me personally too, I just don't think Milly Alcock's a very interesting Supergirl. And maybe that's just the way she's written here. Maybe with a better script, they could really bring it home that she really was the right choice to play the character. I think they just gave her a really bad script. So I'm not trying to completely blame it all on her at this point, but there is a part of me that does kind of wonder if some of this was just how she chose to play the character, and if that's the case, I'm not going to be too thrilled with seeing her in future DC projects moving forward, but if they could find a way to make her more likable, not make her such a drunk like she was in this film, not make her so unlikable and hypocritical and all the stuff that she does over the course of the film. But like I said, I'm going to go over some positives and negatives to things that do work about the movie, but some negatives along the way, and some things I do hope that James Gunn and DC consider moving forward as they hopefully will make more DC films. So for my positives of this film, I did think all the Lobo and Krypto the Superdog moments were very effective here. Unfortunately, with Krypto getting this dart into his system, we don't get him for super long. We get him mostly through flashbacks at that point in the film. With Lobo, Jason Momoa, I think, was pretty much born to play this character, even more so than Aquaman back when he played that in the previous version of the DC Brandon film. He's just very... He has a lot of quips. He does a lot of... he almost kind of treats revenge like a good thing. He just the way he shows up in certain things, how he perfectly has no problem acknowledging if a character is annoying to him or if a character is worthless to him as far as making his end goals and making his missions work. So I like the way he played Lobo, and I like the way that Krypto the Superdog showed up on screen whenever he is on screen. So those two characters, whenever they're on screen, love their screen presence. Hopefully we get a ton of Lobo in the future, and not so much Supergirl, and so much in the future of DC. There's a Seth Rogen character. He basically plays this little alien character that rides an alien bus, and he kind of is the co-pilot of it, if you want to call it that. Very funny character. He's not in the film for super long. Him and Craig Gillespie seem to like to team up on projects. It seems like, they were both in Pam and Tommy together. They both worked on Dumb Money together. They've done a lot of projects together, so it's safe to say that they like working with each other. But the character he played was really funny here, and you can definitely tell right away that it's him. It's just his normal voice. So whenever he's on screen for the brief time that it is, ton of fun to watch him. Liked his character for the most part. I also thought a lot of the sci-fi set designs were pretty cool, and for the most part, it almost looks like they tried to do some practical creatures, which I also really admire. It almost kind of feels like what George Lucas was doing in those original trilogy Star Wars movies. Not the most original thing you'll ever find. I do think Star Wars does it a little bit better, even on Mandalorian and smaller stuff like that. But those set designs are pretty cool. I liked the sci-fi look to them. They do look like something from another planet. They don't feel like they're on Earth when they're on those places. So I do like the overall set design of some of these sci-fi settings. I also thought the planet Krypton scenes were very effective. How they go over kind of how Krypton met its fate, how Kara had to leave there in order for this story to continue, and why she wasn't there when Krypton was on its final days. So I thought how planet Krypton was depicted, what it looked like, its bright colors on the scenes where it takes place during the day, and kind of what ultimately met its demise when they explained that, I thought was all very effective. So the planet Krypton stuff, pretty effective for the most part. Those scenes were enjoyable. I also thought the film's connections to 2025 Superman was very effective. They do show Clark in his apartment. They do show Superman sometimes doing stuff. They do show Superman outside the Fortress of Solitude once Supergirl finally gets there, and kind of the timeline of when she got there and how Superman is aware of her being on Earth and stuff like that. So I thought all that stuff was pretty cool. So when it does connect to that 2025 Superman film, that is some of the better parts of the movie to me too. And also, I do like how the villainous gang of the movie, the gang that works for Krem the villain, I do like how they have a lot of kryptonite-related weapons with them. I thought that was a very interesting way to create a villain for a Supergirl film, because you got to create a character where, because you are dealing with Supergirl and Superman, obviously probably the few things you can have on you that could really put them at a disadvantage is a kryptonite-related weapon. And so I do like that they gave these characters these kryptonite-related weapons to kind of better their chances of defeating Supergirl, defeating Superman. There's even times where Kara looks like she's going to have a very hard time taking down these characters when we get into the third act and the big fights are starting to happen at this point in the story. So I do like how these characters do have some kryptonite connections, and I thought that that was kind of a clever way to put their characters at an advantage, at least for a little bit at one point in the story. But for my negatives of Supergirl, unfortunately, it is a Supergirl film, and I do absolutely have to put this as a negative because it is a Supergirl film, but Supergirl is extremely unlikable in this film. She's also very hypocritical. She's trying to teach this young girl on this mission to not take revenge. It'll live with you the rest of your life. And if you do this, you're always gonna not forgive yourself as long as you live. And after she literally gives her this big speech about that and convinces her not to do this revenge thing, she does the exact things that she told this girl not to do. And so there's all this stuff where she tries to give motivational speeches to people, or she's trying to make somebody a better person or better creature, and then she goes off and does this thing that's as bad, if not worse, than the thing she was just giving a character a lecture about. So she's one of those kind of characters, and there's something about that I don't like. There's something about that rubs me the wrong way. I also don't like how you can write Supergirl as a pessimistic character, but I feel like there's a tasteful way to do that, and the way that this film does that is not the right way to do it. For most of the film, Supergirl is either throwing up or getting drunk or peeing in the corner or doing something that is just not a very likable trait of a superhero character. And I get that she's not supposed to be perfect, quote unquote, but screenwriting 101 to me is you gotta find a way to get me engaged in this character that you're making me watch throughout two hours. And if you fail to do that, that's a pretty big letdown in the screenplay department to me. I also thought the film felt a little too small scale for its own good, and it almost felt kind of episodic in a way. At least with Superman last year, it felt like a full story. It felt like we got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Clark Kent went on a journey of some kind. He learned a lesson of some kind. He learned something about Lex Luthor or Lois Lane, or about, something extraterrestrial or something. And by the end of the story, there was something about him that changed overall. And this time around, it just felt a little too small scale. It felt kind of episodic. It almost felt like an extended episode of television of, we're going to follow Supergirl on this one mission here. She's going to stop this person, and then the story's just going to end. And that's kind of what the approach felt like to me. And it just felt a little too episodic. It felt a little too small scale for its own good. And I would have preferred a Supergirl story similar to Superman in 2025 that did go on this full journey, that did have a beginning, a middle, and an end, a first act, a second act, a third act, and learn something over the course of this adventure. And this time around, it just kind of felt like a day in the life of Supergirl, unfortunately. And overall, too, because James Gunn didn't write or direct this film, you can kind of feel his magic not really being present in this film. It really did feel like, and I got this from the trailers, and I was worried about this going in, it really did feel like somebody trying to do a James Gunn impression. Whether that is in the directing from Greg Gillespie, whether that is in the screenplay department, it felt like two people went out, wrote a script, directed a movie, and literally the whole time was trying to constantly ask themselves, how would James Gunn do it? How would James Gunn do this? And for me personally, if you're really going to set another person out, to do the Supergirl film, I want to see what Craig Gillespie's Supergirl would truly look like. I want to see what his true vision of this character, of this story, of this universe will look like. Because to me, that's a more interesting DC universe than just Craig Gillespie has to do a James Gunn impression. This next person has to do a James Gunn impression. This other person has to do this project that feels like something James Gunn would have done. And to me, that just doesn't feel... And I understand consistency. I understand James Gunn wants to have a more optimistic view on the DC universe this time around for his universe of films. There's something about this film in particular, though, where the magic just wasn't there. It just felt like an impression of something or a cheap imitation of something that feels way better than this film was trying to do. And also, too, I thought the editing felt a little too disconnected to me. What Man of Steel did back when that came out is it took things from Clark's life, whether it's at the beginning, at the middle, or the end, or things that are connected to the overall Man of Steel story, and it found a way to kind of cleverly put them into the story, that scene that you just witnessed. This time around with the editing, it just felt really disconnected. It felt like we would get the story, then we get a part on Krypton, then we get another part of the story, then another scene from Krypton again. And it just kind of felt like they went to the editing room, just did a story moment, a Krypton moment, a story moment, a Krypton moment, a story moment, a Krypton moment. It almost felt like they didn't even try to connect those scenes together. It just kind of felt like, well, we don't want to just tell it all chronologically, so let's just kind of break it up and hope that those small pieces will be satisfying for whenever people were witnessing it in the story. And to me, it just felt a little too disconnected for its own good. And overall, too, I feel like the villain of the film, and I've seen a lot of people online complain about this too, did feel very lame and generic. It just felt like another villain of the week, villain of the month, character in a streaming episode that's out to go get the bad guy or get the good person, and they just make their life miserable for a day or two, and then they get killed off super easily because the super person is really capable of taking them down. And it just kind of felt like a lame generic character to have your film be about that kind of villain. And for me personally, that's just really lazy screenwriting when they have no personality they could add whatsoever to this villainous character that we're supposed to care about, but we just don't care about at all. I also thought the use of montages was very bad in the movie too. I just felt like anytime we entered a montage or anytime they were trying to skip past something or do a poetic shorthand on something, it just kind of felt like they relied on montages to kind of do the easier parts or do the easier form of the work in that form of storytelling. And to me personally, whenever they cheaped their way out with a montage, it almost felt like they cheated me out of something that should have just been told more properly in the screenplay. And overall, too, some of the needle drops and music choices were pretty bad here. And once again, it's just another bad James Gunn imitation. It just kind of felt like the wrong choices for what they could have done for music choices in certain scenes. Really was not impressed with the needle drops or the music choices in those segments of the film. But overall, guys, I'm going to give Supergirl a 7 out of 10. I think there's just enough here to get me excited about future DC projects. But as an individual film, I think this film is kind of a letdown, unfortunately. Tons of things that are really not working for it. Like I said, just enough things where I could give it to a 7. I almost gave it a 6.5, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought about the stuff that I liked, it did bring me to a 7. So it's not the worst thing you could go see in the theater. I think if you're a super hardcore DC fan, I think you can wait to stream this one. I really can't send you to a theater to see this. But it's not the worst thing in the world. It doesn't give me, it doesn't make me worried that the rest of the DC brand is going to fail from here. But it is a 7 out of 10 for me. There's just enough here to make me happy on certain things, but just enough to where I am a little worried that if they don't change course a little bit, they might go down the wrong path with this new DC universe. So 7 out of 10 for me. It's okay. Wait to stream it, I would say, for this one if I were to give you my personal impression on it. Not the worst thing in the world, certainly not the best thing in the world either. I hope they course correct, but for now it's a 7 out of 10. It's an okay film.